Rubio touched on a couple of points that are vitally important. Let's give a light touch regulatory framework that steps back and allows for the internet to grow any way it wants. You don't need net neutrality regulations. What you need is to deal with the problem when it arises. Okay, in this instance, and the FTC can handle this. This is a Federal Trade Commission problem, not an FCC problem. The problem with regulations is everyone's guilty without any chance of proving themselves innocent. Let's let the actions happen on their own. There's a free market incentive not to do stuff like block via net neutrality blocking, because if you do, again, as we said, if Comcast blocks, that may be the last straw for someone to go, you know what, I'm going wireless. He's exactly right, and this is the future, is wireless. While the wireless network continues to build out at the incredibly successful rate it's been growing, and the best way to alleviate that is to have the government rein itself in, stop over-regulating, a little regulatory humility would be nice, and make available more spectrum. Get the government out of the way, both from a regulatory perspective and a government spectrum perspective. Get it to the people who are building it properly. Don't pick winners and losers in the auctions. Leave it open to as many people as want to participate. And get the ball, as Governor Perry said when he was pulled over, let us get on down the road. Step back, light touch regulatory framework. Let the market dictate where the market wants to go, where the internet wants to go. Everything will fall into place, as we've seen over and over and over again in the internet in the last 15, 20 years, how we never know what's coming. We're always blown away by what is, because the government's not involved. The government's not picking winners and losers. The government's not directing traffic. The government's not involved, and as always happens, when the government isn't involved, great things occur. He made the important distinction between internet freedom and internet license. The intellectual property thieves want license to steal. What they want is their brands of theft legalized. And he made the distinction of, we want freedom, that's not license to steal. And he made the distinction, if I've got a warehouse full of TVs and they're stolen, we can go and get you. Well, if I have a server full of stolen MP3s and MP4s, same thing should apply. They should go get a warrant, Fourth Amendment, but it's no different from a principled perspective. And he made that distinction. He wants maximum internet freedom. He talked about the hypocrisy of the left domestically saying, net neutrality, wait a minute, ITU stop. Even though some preachers in that discussion were talked about, I saw Public Knowledge and others say, this may be a way to get net neutrality through the ITU.
As policymakers, we have to put the right policies in place for broadband networks, for wireless internet, for global internet ecosystems, to ensure that legacy laws and regulations don't deprive the middle class of the opportunities that will come along with the digital world. Now, how do we do this? Is it with more government and more regulation? Or do we do this with a light touch regulatory structure that is based on sound analysis, is based on competition, it's based on economic growth? We have this fast-paced, dynamic industry that's operating in a global, hyper-competitive environment. And we have these governmental agencies that have static laws and legacy regulations that were applied to analog networks in the 20th century in a more monopolistic environment. And they are now being applied to technologies that are operating in a converged marketplace. That means we are applying literally 20th century laws to 21st century businesses that are moving faster and developing quicker than any businesses have ever developed. And government just can't keep pace with that. Simply put, look, the world is going wireless. The world's going wireless. Just as a personal aside, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I used to sit in front of I literally virtually never sit in front of my computer anymore. It's all an iPad or the phone, and it's constant flow of information. The bottom line is that we don't even know what the world's going to look like in 5 years, not to mention 10 years. Put yourself in a time machine and go back a decade ago. I just did that a moment ago when he said he was majority leader in 2003 in the Florida legislature. 10 years ago, if I would have seen one of you guys walk in with an iPad or a Samsung or whatever, I would have had no idea. I would have wondered, why is that guy walking around with a TV in his hand, a flat screen? I wouldn't know what it was. That's how fast the world is changing. I used to joke that years ago, if you told someone you were going to Google them, they'd slap you, right? They'd be offended. If you told someone you just tweeted, they'd say, keep that to yourself. The point is, that's how fast the world is changing. We have no idea what the world's going to look like 5 years ago, except one thing: it's going to be very, very different. I believe we have to get more spectrum in the pipeline. We need to look beyond the auctions currently authorized and have a series of auctions over several years to provide spectrum in a clear and predictable and steady manner. This is how we provide industry certainty, so that they are incentivized to invest and deploy the infrastructure. And to ensure that happens is going to require getting the incentive auctions and those set for 2015, getting those done on time. It will also require reallocating government spectrum. And it's almost an understatement to say that the internet has changed the world. You hear people say that all the time, but it truly has. It's impacted everything we do, and it's connected people and ideas in ways that were not previously imagined. It has virtually unlimited power to help people achieve unprecedented freedom and to rise above the circumstances of their birth. There is a reason why China restricts the internet. There is a reason why Iran restricts access to the internet. There is a reason for that. Just in the cause of human freedom, what the internet has done has truly been as dramatic as any advancement in modern human history. To ensure that the internet's success continues and that society continues to benefit, we must keep it free from regulation, both at home and abroad. Now, much of the debate surrounding net neutrality or even the adoption of the FCC's order happened before I came to the Senate. But it didn't take long after I arrived in the Senate for me to realize that I didn't agree with the FCC's action. It was clear that this was a regulation based on speculation, implementing mandates that constitute public utility-style regulation onto broadband networks. That was clearly a step in the wrong direction. So I hope that net neutrality mandates are overturned in court. And if that occurs, we must be prepared to oppose efforts by proponents of net neutrality to reclassify broadband and pass legislation that does so. We do not want to see government regulation or control of the internet, not here, not abroad, and not anywhere. What I'm saying is that we must protect the internet ecosystem, the content, the architecture, the networks, from government control and from regulation, especially from international tribunals. And that's why I work with senators from both sides of the aisle, as well as members of the House last year, to make Congress's position on this absolutely crystal clear, and why I'm working again on bipartisan legislation that reinforces that the policy of the United States, the official policy of the United States, is to promote a global internet free from government control and maintain the current multi-stakeholder governance system that's in place. We just can't stand idly by as countries try to justify censorship or economic regulation of the internet. Because if we do, we are going to lose the very essence of what makes the internet unique and great, and it's going to jeopardize the promise the internet holds for the digital transition. I would caution against looking only at finishing the job. Sure, it's important that we do, but we have to look at the steps to get there. Otherwise, we may end up picking the wrong ones. But we should not limit ourselves to focusing on the finish line, because we don't know what the line will be or what it will look like. Telecommunications is moving that fast. That's why we have to be forward-thinking, and we have to take the long-term view on all these issues. And I believe that if we do that, that's how we can ensure that telecommunications continues to lead our economic growth and opportunity and provides for millions of Americans a path to the middle class and beyond and a better life for all of our people and for people all over the world.